past month here at the church, and it's been a fascinating study. We have 6 more of those study sessions to go, so if any of you would like to join us, come on Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock. We'd be happy to have you here. I've become fascinated by this character of Moses. He is one of the great heroes of the Old Testament. It's Abraham who receives the promise of God, go forward from this place and I will make your descendants as the stars in the sky. It's Abraham who launches, if you might want to put it that way, the Hebrew movement. But it's Moses who defines the Hebrew movement. Lots have happened to God's people. They've traveled around. They end up as slaves in Egypt. The Egyptians are hard taskmasters. They put the Hebrews to the worst kind of work. They even slaughter the babies from time to time to keep the population down. This was the circumstances surrounding our story for today. The babies of the Hebrews were to be killed to keep the population down. And one of the smart women, Hebrew women, this is really the first story of Moses is a story about smart women figuring out how to make a way. One of the Levite women, that means she was in the priestly group, doesn't want her child to be endangered, so she keeps him secretly away for 3 months. But then he's getting a little bit older and beginning to make more noise and cry, and it's hard to keep him secreted away, so she and her daughter and some friends come up with an elaborate plan. You see, the daughter works as a servant for the princess, for the daughter of the Pharaoh. And every so often she comes down to the Nile to bathe. And so they come up with this ingenious plan. They'll put little baby Hebrew in a basket that they make out of papyrus and tar, and they'll hide him in the bulrushes. And when the daughter of the Pharaoh comes down to bathe, the daughter of Moses' mother, his sister, who's working for him, will stroll along the bank and say, "Oh my goodness, look what we found here, a baby in the bulrushes." And then she'll take the baby back to the Pharaoh's daughter, and hopefully something positive will happen. In this case, the Pharaoh's daughter says, "Oh, well, this is one of those Hebrew babies that we've been having so much trouble with. Let's keep this one." And then there is the sister ready again. She says, "Oh, well, I guess you'll want a woman to be raising this baby for you." He said, "Well, that's a good idea. Why don't you find someone?" And she goes and gets Moses' mother. So Moses' mother raises her own child, is paid for by the Pharaoh, and then he is adopted into the Pharaoh's house. There's some wise women. Pharaoh is king. He's more than king, he's God. His immediate family is empowered to do anything. So this Hebrew child becomes educated. They educate him in the palace. He learns about all of the Egyptian gods. He learns about the Hebrew God from his mother and his tribe. He's got 2 allegiances. He's torn. And as a young man, one day he sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating on a slave, and he kills him. Kills him out of anger. He's a murderer. He has to get out of town. He flees as far away as he can go. He goes out into the middle of the Sinai desert away from Egypt and meets up with another group of people, the Midianites, who just happened to be the first people in the world in civilization to have invented a certain kind of writing so that you can express many different kinds of ideas. Who's the one who will bring the tablet down the mountain later with the writing on it so that they can remember from generation to generation? Moses. God keeps putting him in these situations. Well, Moses is a good hard worker. He's out in the desert, meets the Midianites. They like him. Jethro, not Jethro from the Clampetts, but the real Jethro, first Jethro. Jethro, the priest of the Midianites, adopts him into his clan, gives him one of his daughters to marry, and Moses settles down. He's now a sheep herder out in the middle of the Sinai desert, doing pretty well for himself. But then the burning bush. He's out one day with his animals and he sees a bush that's on fire, but it doesn't get consumed. And like most curious people, he goes over to see what it is, and God's voice speaks out of the bush. Says, "Take off your shoes. You're on holy ground." And then, much to Moses' surprise, he says, "I got a job for you. I want you to go back to Egypt," the last place that Moses wants to go. He's a